Hello everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. Today I'd like to talk about Scottish citizenship and ask the question, is it now worthless? So what recently happened is that Scottish Parliament has allowed refugees to vote, or more specifically allowed non-citizens the right to vote in certain elections. So let's read through this update. This says 2017, but it's actually from a few days ago. The Scottish Government has confirmed its intention to extend the voting franchise to include all non-UK citizens living in Scotland. So citizens who aren't part of the United Kingdom. Parliamentary Business Minister Joe Fitzpatrick said all residents in Scotland, wherever they are from, should be able to vote. Currently, only British, Irish, or qualifying Commonwealth citizens, I wonder if that would allow me, over the age of 16, can vote in Scottish Parliament and local authority elections. The minister also said expansion would include asylum seekers and refugees settled in Scotland. MSPs backed lowering the voting age from 18 to 16 back in 2015 following the devolution of powers over the Scottish elections. So Scotland is, well, it used to be an independent country, so it was conquered by the English a long time ago. And recently, last century, they were given limited power over Scotland. They've got the devolution, where there's certain things that Westminster, the Parliament in England, still controls over the whole kingdom, but Scotland does have some independent authority. And this is what they're doing with it. Or this is one example of what they're doing with it. They're lowering the voting age to 16, which, I mean, you know, yeah, I know I was pretty stupid at 16, particularly with my appreciation of actually living and life. So maybe we're starting to see the outcome of that. Because this is just, it's odd. I'm trying to figure out why you'd want to do this, why you'd want to not tie the right to vote to being a citizen. It just seems ludicrous. So the changes will not apply to general elections, the power which resides over Westminster. Okay, so it's not the real elections. It's only your local ones, your residents. You know, everyone should be able to vote. If they want to have more people voting, if they want to have these people that are living in the country to vote, why didn't they have a campaign to say, become Scottish? You know, apply for citizenship. You know, you've been a resident for 10 years. You're committed, you're loyal to the country, you love it here, become a citizen. There's a process in place for that. But I bet you that's a little too nationalistic these days for just the sentiment of the Scottish politicians. They wouldn't dare. Now, there's another article I'd like to just have a quick look at. This was a bit earlier in the year. This is in January. So now they're talking about it could happen in this article, and it just has. So here we go. The Scottish Government is considering allowing refugees and non-EU citizens to vote in local and Scottish Parliament elections. Holyrood was granted new powers over taxation and the running of elections by Westminster in 2016. I wonder if they regret that now. And the SNP minority government is keen to make major changes that will set it apart from the rest of the United Kingdom. I wonder if it's reactionary. A public consultation launched last month suggested extending the voting franchise to everyone legally resident in Scotland. This would mean anyone granted asylum or a visa to live in Scotland will be able to vote in the country's regional parliament and local council elections, including refugees and non-EU or non-Commonwealth citizens. What is the point then in being a citizen? I guess you get to vote in Westminster. No. Wow. The extension of the franchise would not include Westminster, strictly controlled by the government in London. The Scottish Minister for Parliamentary Business, Joe Fitzpatrick, said the Scottish Government is committed to ensuring access to democratic participation for all citizens. Scotland has led the way internationally by lowering the voting age to 16. Well, you're just devaluing what all the citizens have. You're literally watering down their vote by extending it to people who aren't citizens. You're taking what they have and you're reducing its value. So I still don't understand. We now seek to extend the opportunity to vote to all who are legally resident in Scotland. Now, it only seems fair that those who have the right to live here, whether from EU countries or elsewhere, have the right to vote. Now, this is how conspiracy theories evolve or come about. You say, oh, look, they're doing this just to get the lefties and the refugees that will just vote for left, vote for left, vote for left. And, you know, that it feels very nice to think like that. And it's a conclusion a lot of us can jump to. But I don't know, it seems a little too simplistic. But then again, maybe that's it. They just want to water down the election. I mean, honestly, Italy, they couldn't even form their parliament because Brussels said no. And Brexit isn't even happening. So why are we even worrying about voting? It's not like it makes any difference anymore. You know, our overlords and rulers won't even pay attention. So it's kind of, you know, let them vote about who collects the bloody garbage. Oh, wow. He said there was a view that the current rules on suffrage did not reflect modern Scotland and that linking citizenship with the right to vote is undemocratic. Wow. That's insane. As citizens from a very wide range of countries come to live and work in Scotland, it can be considered discriminatory to deny the right to vote to resident immigrants who are neither EU nor Commonwealth citizens. Now, here, my personal, completely anecdotal experience is where my mother is an Austrian citizen, a resident of Australia who's been here forever. And she's going through the process to become a citizen because she loves it here, her family's here, her grandkids are here, but it's easier to get an Austrian passport again and just not change because it's a lot of work and a lot of paperwork. And I don't think she minds not actually having to vote in Australian elections, really. So I don't get it. How can it be? You're literally taking something that your citizens have and you're giving it to everyone. This is a whole globalist, open borders, free society. It's a utopian fantasy that people think that if you just let everyone in, everything will work out nice. You know, the historical precedent in architecture, we are trained to look at precedent, to look at what has happened before, to look at other examples. Historically, you had to earn the right to be a citizen. You had to work for it. You had to prove that you wanted it. And now they're devaluing it. They are literally devaluing what these people, the Scottish people, have. The public consultation is due to close on the 12th of March, and we've seen the outcome of that. I wonder how many people actually realised what was going on. The Scottish Refugee Council hailed the move, which they said, of course they did, would help many rebuild their lives in the country. Okay, I guess you can become a citizen and get the right to vote. Frankly, it's probably going to be an inconvenience to most of them. Because I know here in Australia, if you don't vote, you get fined. I wonder if that happens over there. Maybe it's just a money-raising revenue for councils. Oh, wow. The charity's policy officer, Graham O'Neill, told The Scotsman, "There's no reason why refugees who are building their lives should have fewer rights than the rest of us." Yeah, that's the whole... Well, then they can become citizens to earn those rights. If you want to extend those rights to these group of people, encourage them to become citizens of your country, to swear loyalty to your country, so they don't have divided alliances. Here in Australia, we've just had this whole thing about dual citizenship with our politicians. So many of them had to step down from Parliament because of the dual citizenship issue. And a lot of them, frankly, they didn't even realise. You know, it was some odd circumstance. You know, your mother was married to a father and you were stationed in bloody Singapore or something, so you got British citizenship. And I don't understand the concept of dual citizenship. You know, I honestly would say just boom, have it only one. You can only have one. You can't have any more because your loyalties are divided. What if your two countries go to war and, you know, will they consider you a treason? Will you be a traitor in one and not the other? I don't know. They're our colleagues, friends, and contribute a huge amount to Scottish society. There is nothing wrong with what he's saying here, but that doesn't mean that they automatically get to water down the rights of your citizens. They should become citizens. Or is it too hard? You don't want to dirty the Scottish culture, or the gene pool of Scots. No, we can't have those dirty brown people becoming citizens. No. Let's just give them the vote anyway. This just seems ludicrous to me. I'm sure a lot of people we work with would relish the chance to participate in elections and have a say on how to build a fairer society. So, I mean, if you know in the comments, please let me know why they're not just pushing to allow these people to become citizens. Surely there's a process. You could learn about, prove that you know the language, prove that you know the culture. Prove that you are a contributing member to society, that you're not just going to be dependent on society right off the bat. Then, fantastic, give them that right. Because otherwise, if you get a whole lot of if anyone just rocks up there and gets asylum and can vote, that's going to affect the outcome. And you're going to get voting blocks that are going to sway the country. There's also, currently in the UK, once they hit a certain proportion of non-white immigrants in an area, I think it's 30%, there is no way the Conservatives can win that seat anymore, because a lot of those people vote as a bloc. And fortunately, in the US now, there seems to be in the move where a lot of the blacks are going away from voting for the Democrats, or at least some people are going off the plantation and realizing, oh, maybe this socialist bloody Democrat foot on our throat is not the best way to go. The country, along with Northern Ireland, voted to remain in the European Union during the referendum in 2016. Well, you're not getting kicked out anyway. You can't leave. The SNP has repeatedly called for more powers on immigration and trade. In a speech to Edinburgh in September last year, First Minister Nicola Sturgeon called for greater flexibility for Scotland when it comes to regulating immigration. Wow, so they want to... Because immigration is a big issue in the UK at the moment, because it's just upsetting the... really, the people who are affected by it are the working class people. Most of the time. A lot of the middle class people aren't really affected by it. Speaking on the 20th anniversary of the devolution, that term, devolution, referendum which led to the establishment of the Scottish Parliament, she called the Westminster plan to reduce net migration to the tens of thousands an ideological target that could have devastating consequences for our economy and our society. Okay, so this all comes back to they want to keep people flooding in so they can keep their taxes going, so they can keep paying for all these free things that people get that they can't afford to give anymore. Probably because they're bringing in people that can't contribute until they need to spend time to learn the culture, learn the language, and work. Instead, Scotland should offer a welcoming hand and an open heart to those seeking a better life or wanting to make a contribution here, she added. According to a 2014 report by the Office for National Statistics, Scotland's population is expected to stagnate over the next 25 years. There we go. If there is a low net migration, with the overall population projected to grow by just 3,500 people, or 0.07% every year. This means the country will increasingly suffer from a major labour shortage as it tries to prop up its economy. The NHS, the National Health Service, and its social services, if it cannot bring in a migrant workforce. Okay, so this is the real reason why this is all happening. They are just declining in population. They're not going to have enough working age people to generate the taxes to keep their civilization going. Now, last night I watched a YouTube video on the Bronze Age collapse, where there was a system collapse in these Bronze Age cultures. The trade fell apart, it was invading people, and just the society pretty much crumbled, and they couldn't rebuild, and they couldn't maintain their military. And are we starting to see that? Are we starting to see Western countries, because their population growth is not keeping up with the systems that they have in place, the amount of money they need to generate to keep these functioning? And so the answer is bring in immigrants, bring in immigrants, bring in immigrants. But the immigrants aren't from, in America, you bring in immigrants, you bring in European immigrants, Greek, Germans, Germans are one of the biggest minorities in the United States. And you get all these immigrants coming over, but the cultures were compatible to an extent, here in Australia as well. But now they're getting people coming in from cultures that are different. They don't have the same, they don't have the same roots. They don't have the same Western theological Western philosophy underpinning, just hardwired into the way people think. There's certain things that we just implicitly have been exposed to and grown up with in Western cultures that aren't present in other cultures. And, to kind of have people come in and come to a new country, you need to give time for the generations to adopt the cultural values of the civilization they're joining. Or else if you have too many come in, that's a displaced population, then they won't have the opportunity to integrate or to appreciate the civics and the advanced culture that they could learn from. Really, I think it's going to be a merging of cultures where you hopefully get the best bit from both. All cultures come together and come to the top. But if it happens too fast, too many people, and you can't have that second generation can start appreciating, freedom of speech, freedom of choice. I can marry whoever I want. Fantastic. I can have free speech in public. That's great. I can argue about this historically considered approach to something and not be killed. But if you do it too quick and you just bring them in for greed and to prop up your economy, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, that's definitely worth a series, looking at all these countries where they're just not meeting their population targets and they're hoping that immigration will solve it. So everyone, thank you for joining me for this episode of Heiser Says. I hope you enjoyed it. And please share and subscribe if you'd like to see more content. I'm still just a bit flabbergasted at this one, pardon me. That they're giving the votes to non-citizens and they're not just pushing for become citizens. Wow. Well, thank you very much. Take care, guys. See you next time.